How are we doing, guys? A quick reaction to the 6-2 win for Leeds United in their final pre-season game before the start of the 2022-2023 season. And yeah, to be honest, very pleased with today's performance. We saw a performance today that was very encouraging. I think obviously going into the season, there was a lot of energy, good movement, good passing, creativity. Yes, there's still things to work on. There's clearly still things to work on. And that's kind of what I'm going to go through on this video. I made a lot of notes on the game. So you'll see me looking over here quite a lot. So I've made a lot of notes on the game. It's not just about today. It's about pre-season in general. You know, pre-season, it's been a strange pre-season for Leeds, really. You know, I think there's been positives. There's been some negatives. It's been an interesting one. But yeah, let's go through a quick reaction to the game in general. I think defensively is the first thing to talk about. I think defensively, there's things to work on. There's definitely things to work on. I think the back line, on quite a lot of occasions, certainly since we've played higher quality of opposition, to an extent today, I think we saw it. Yes, I know we played a Serie B team today, but we're kind of seeing it since the Brisbane Roar game. We've seen that the back line is getting caught quite high up the pitch on quite a lot of occasions in these games. And listen, that's going to happen. You know, when you play the system we're playing, you know, which is very much a compact press where the whole team presses together. We play a high line, you know, to allow that team to stay close together. Because the back line is very close to Bamford. You know, there's not a lot of space in between them. That's the way we're trying to play this season. And there's going to be times where we do get caught with balls over the top. That's a simple fact, you know, with the system we're playing. But it's happening a lot. It is happening a lot more than what we'd like, you know, to justify pressing high, because obviously if you want to press high, you've got to have the benefits outweighing the negatives to it. And at the minute, we're seeing a lot of negatives in terms of we're conceding very, very similar types of goals and very, very similar types of chances from that situation where we are getting caught very high up the pitch. Yeah, there's a couple of things to talk about that, but it's the fact that obviously we've not played the top team yet. The fact this is happening against mid-table Premier League teams and obviously teams that aren't really a Premier League quality, that is a bit of a concern. But that's the big thing I think we need to work on. I think more than anything, you know, before this season starts, we need to really fine-tune that press in terms of when teams are able to play out the press. Because when you play someone like a Chelsea, a Manchester City, yeah, we're not going to play them every single week. Even like a West Ham, a Newcastle, you know, teams that are kind of more towards that top 10. They're going to be able to play out the press and they're going to be able to force lots of situations like that, because every single team has got pace, you know, in the forward areas to expose, you know, the high line in those situations. So that's definitely something we do need to work on. And that's why I think as good as what today has been, there still needs to be calm. This is very much a season about trying to make progress on last season. You know, it's important to make progress on last season, but there's still areas in this team that I think is going to limit us in terms of how far we can push up the table in reality that going into this season. But yeah, I think obviously a part of it as well is the fact that obviously Liam Cooper hasn't been available for pre-season. We have had to change that back four around quite a lot. I think Robin Koch has played, I think, all the pre-season games now, but he's had a different centre-back partner, I think, from game to game. It's been between Pascal Struijk and Diego Llorente. Left-back situation, obviously, at the minute, we don't have a fully fit left-back at the football club. So that is a massive concern as well. But having said that, Pascal, I thought, has shown the best form at left back in terms of the options we currently have. And he was encouraging today. And I think he was encouraging at times last season. Of course, you need more maybe of a long-term fix or at least a potential solution, because you can't just be relying on a centre-back in that left-back spot for me. But listen, there's still 30 days left of the transfer window, but that is still a clear area. The centre-back situation, I think, it needs to be a settled back line. You know, to play a high press, to have that communication, that understanding when, you know, when a certain pass is being played by the opposition, where they've kind of broken through, you know, past Bamford, past Aronson, needs to be that communication in the team. And that can't really be achieved for me if we're swapping the centre-back partnership around or even the full-back slots. It needs to be a settled back four for it to fully work. And there's no reason why, if we can get a fully settled back four, you know, maybe improve the left-back situation, you know, get depth in other areas, there's no reason why that can't improve. But it's very clear, I think we are lacking, in a weird way, a bit of experience at the back, I think, you know, in terms of, you know, obviously Robin Koch, Diego Llorente especially, do have a lot of games under the belt. But I think when you look at Liam Cooper, a leader in the team, the captain, someone who's played, 300-400 games now in his career, playing in several different systems, is used to playing in this high line. When we were at our peak under Marcelo Bielsa, I think you do need that little bit of leadership, to say to the whole back line when to drop, when to press, just that little bit of communication. But let's talk about the encouraging things. So I don't want to talk about 5 minutes negatives when we just won 6-2, because the encouraging things really were that we were able to put moves together. Lots of good attacking moves. The midfield were using the ball well. Rocker, Adams wanted the ball all the time. High energy off the ball. Really contributed to the press, because I think all in all the press was good today. But there was just those moments when Cagliari were able to play through it. We did have a lot of situations where we were under a lot of pressure, and they did score 2 goals from those situations, and that is a bit of concern against a side it's not the best of teams, let's be totally honest. But yeah, in terms of the creativity, I think Aaronson, Rodrigo interchanged really well. Harrison, I thought, had his best game of pre-season. Pascal, Rasmus Christensen contributed going forward, and there was real shape to the team in terms of Aaronson, Harrison were playing very, very narrow. Fullbacks were pushing up, and it looked like a very, very settled system. I think it's the closest, so far we've seen to a Marsh team. I've very much noticed as well that the Ellen Road pitch has been brought in, at least 2 or 3 yards either side. It's a lot more narrow now, which I think suits us. I think it's very much going to suit us this season, I hope. But yeah, I think on paper that is a good move from Jesse Marsh. Making the pitch a little bit more narrow, a little bit more compact. It suits our pressing. It suits our build-up play, how we like to create chances. I think maybe you saw elements of that today. But I keep saying we still need to be realistic this season. For me, it still feels, and I don't want to sound like negative, but I think there does need to be some perspective going into this season. I think it is feeling a bit to me like it's a consolidation season. We have to remember we lost our 2 key players, a lot of injuries at the minute. I think that Sinisterra one is a bit of a blow in terms of getting a quick start to the season, a fully settled, starting 11, because it's all well and good saying Sinisterra will be back in, about 3-4 weeks' time from the hamstring injury. But it's a very, very condensed first bit of the season. The first, I think, 16 games, you're playing, there's a lot of Tuesday, Saturday occasions as well. I think there's 1 break between now and the World Cup in September. So there's not a lot of time to kind of fully gel a team. There's a lot of time to, have those usual international breaks that I think we probably could have done with, to be honest, at the start of this season, with so many changes to that team, over the pre-season. And let's be honest, in terms of the transfers we have made, I think they've all made a good impression so far. I think our best players in pre-season have been the new signings. I think Aaronson, Rocker especially, really impressed me. I really like Tyler Adams. And I think I like all our signings, to be honest, certainly based on what I've seen so far. And yeah, I think we've made good gains today in terms of getting back to kind of where we were, this time just 18 months ago, finishing 9th in the Premier League. We've made some good gains today. I think at the start of pre-season, we're making good gains, in terms of, the Blackpool, first bit of the Brisbane Roar games. Yes, against lower quality opposition, but I didn't really expect us to be looking that good at the start of pre-season. So yeah, there's progress there. I think even the last 2 games of last season, you're looking at Brighton, Brentford. They're probably going to be, the teams that we're going to be looking to be around this season for me, in terms of, in that kind of bottom bit of the mid-table or pushing towards mid-table. And we competed well against them towards the back end of last season under high pressure. But we have to remember, obviously, the Villa and Palace games, we were okay, especially the Villa game. I thought we were okay in, but we didn't really seriously impose ourselves on those games, especially the Palace one. Where Palace made a lot of changes. We weren't able to properly, impose ourselves on that game. And let's be honest, Palace had a lot of chances. If Zaha had been on the pitch, 𝐃𝐿𝐖𝐍, Eze, we probably would have lost that game, if we're being totally honest. So that is a bit of a concern, in terms of that we still are a little bit inconsistent against the teams around us. But ultimately, it's all about just making progress on last season for me, making sure we're not in that situation we were towards the back end of last season. Let me know in the comments, guys, what you think. I've seen a lot of different views on going into this season. People saying straight away it's going to be a relegation scrap. It's a case of we need to massively improve and finish in the top 10. I'm kind of in between the two, to be totally honest with you. It's typical of me. I do have that reputation on All East TV, but I do very much think we still need to be realistic. There's going to be good weeks, there's going to be bad weeks. And I think you've seen that in pre-season. We've had inconsistent kind of performances, and that's the nature of the team. It's still quite a relatively young team, lots of new signings. But yeah, today was a good day for Leeds, especially for Bamford and Rodrigo, because I think they've been our two most criticised players in pre-season, especially Rodrigo. Some will say it's justified because obviously Rodrigo hasn't performed like we know he can. Today, wow, what a performance from Rodrigo. And let's hope we can kick on from that now. That first bit of form under Jesse Marsch, in terms of the start of the Jesse Marsch era, I thought Rodrigo was our best player. He looked good today. I think Aronson and Rodrigo, there's a good understanding there in terms of interchanging. It's something that clearly worked on the training ground. There's a good combinations on that side of the pitch. And yeah, it's very, very good to see. Bamford took his chances well today. Does look like he's getting close to the full fitness, and fair play to him. Obviously, you have to still look at Bamford's injury record. I've no issue. It says Bamford starting games purely from Bamford's quality. I think Bamford is showing, today for a whole season. Listen, it was a while ago, but even bits of last season, when he did play, he made a big difference to the team. We have to remember that can't be lost on us. I know he had some bad games to start pre-season. Yes, that Brisbane Roar game, the Villa game were not good performances for Patrick Bamford, but he's still getting to full fitness. I think he's even mentioned himself, he's still playing with a lot of pain. But having said all that, I still think the striker situation is important. The fact that Bamford has got that injury record, the fact that Joffrey Gelhardt, is still a youngster, we still need that other striker for me. That other option, that three strikers who can really get the goals for us this season. Despite Bamford's good performance this season. And yeah, listen, it's encouraging that there's names being linked. I've said the same about the left back situation. I still think there's work to do, despite obviously a much improved performance today. I still think there's a lot of work to do for us. And yeah, I think the most positive thing for me going into the season is the midfield balance looks really, really good. Again, we've lost a key player in that position, Calvin Phillips, but I think Adams and Rocker look really good in that double pivot. I think we're using the ball really well. We're playing them through the midfield a lot more. They're getting a lot more passes on the ball, a lot more control of the game. I think we're seeing a lot more of the ball in general now. I think we're building play slower, closer to what we were at our peak of the Marcelo Bielsa. I think we're starting to see that closer style, under Jesse Marsch. That last season we were quite direct towards the back end of the season, but that was a kind of a needs-must situation. I think now we've got two midfielders that I think suit Jesse Marsch's system. We know that's not obviously the case with Tyler Adams, but Mark Rocker, I think, is someone who, despite obviously, not being obviously someone who's great off the ball, I think he's very underrated in that regard. I think he has massively improved that side of his game under Jesse Marsch's coaching so far. So I think that's the big positive for me. There's good depth in that area now. I think obviously Mateusz Klich is good depth to have in that position. Adam Forshaw, it's decent depth to have. It's certainly better than what we were kind of looking at last season, where Klich or Forshaw got injured, all of a sudden we're having to move players out of position. I think we've got less of that now. So yeah, that's a positive for me. Obviously, Sam Greenwald can play a little bit deeper. There's nice options there, but the big thing for me, in terms of if you had to pick one thing to improve between now and Wolves, I think it is that link up of the high line. In terms of the two centre backs. And to an extent, Meslier as well. I think Meslier has been superb in pre-season, but I think Meslier, we need to see a bit more of a sweeper keeper type role from Meslier, because there is a lot of space. When we're pressing high up the pitch, there's a lot of space between Meslier and the back four. Sometimes Meslier is going to have to get off his line, and make decisions, in terms of in those situations. And that's not me criticising Meslier. I think that's just a case of we need to get that understanding. When we do lose the ball, when we're not able to press, the space between Meslier and the back line is as little as possible. It's as compact as possible, so there's not people running into those spaces. Because listen, we're playing Wolves on Saturday. Pedro Neto getting into those situations isn't what you want. Podence, I think Jimenez is out of this game, but there's a lot of different players. Morgan Gibbs-White, there's a lot of players like Wolves team who will love getting in behind into that space, making late runs into that space. And if it is a lot of space there, and Mellier's not getting off his line as a sweeper keeper, the back four aren't, working as a unit. That's a problem. But let's see what it's like when we have a full team available. I think obviously Sinisterra is still to come in, Liam Cooper, obviously Joffrey didn't play today either, and there's possibly still some more signings to come in. Let's see how things are looking after that. But yeah, I think all in all, I'm happier in terms of going into the season after today. Naturally, after winning 6-2. But yeah, in terms of anticipating what the season's going to be like, I just think it's going to be a bit of an up and down season, but I'm hoping all in all we can do enough, improve enough to not be involved in any kind of relegation battle. I think very much the league feels like it's in three parts now. I think you've got your top six that are so far clear of everyone else at this moment in time. I don't think anyone, certainly not ourselves at this moment in time, breaking into that top six. I don't think you've got a middle region of about 9 to 10 teams who are just kind of like mid-table teams, naturally inconsistent. And then you've got teams kind of around that bottom 5, bottom 6 who are going to struggle all season. And we've got to make sure we're in that middle bit for me, that middle bit. And I think at this moment in time, you look at our performances against Villa, performances against Crystal Palace, who are also teams that put in that kind of middle section of the league. I don't think we're at their level at this moment in time. But if we were around the bottom bit of that middle section of teams, 14th, 15th, I think that'd be a decent season for us at this moment in time. I think we're still learning, still growing as a team, and let's see how it goes. Listen, we'll see how it goes. But first game against Wolves, I don't know what to expect. But certainly feel more encouraged after today. But it just feels like a weird season, this one. I think obviously last season, there was still a lot of expectation going into the season with how last season finished. 2020, 2021 finished. There was a lot of expectation carried into that where anything less than top 10 felt like going backwards. But yeah, this season obviously is different. The fact that there's no more Rafinha, there's no more Calvin Phillips, two real difference makers. Let's not forget, Rafinha was the ultimate difference maker that kept us in this league. I think we won one game where Rafinha wasn't involved in the goal and assist. So he played their part in how many games did we win last season? I think we won 10 games last season. He played a massive part in 9 out of those 10 wins. We haven't got that difference maker now. Hopefully Sinisterra will be that. Joffrey Gelhardt will grow as a difference maker. Aronson, etc. But we've lost a player who's gone to Barcelona. Let's remember that. We've lost a player that's gone to Manchester City. The judged us that high quality of player that we've lost. So keep it realistic. Keep the faith. Let's get into this new season. I've been Oscar Marriott. Let me know if I've been too negative. Let me know if I've been too positive. If I've sat on the fence as always. I have sat on the fence today, but I feel like it's going to be that kind of season where there's going to have to be perspective for large parts of the season. But as long as we make progress, it's all good. Anyway, guys, make sure you smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done already, and we will see you later. See you later, guys.